Warning, this episode contains mild to heavy explicit spoilers. Listen at your own risk.
Reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is The Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
After a successful requelling of its franchise, Scream returns in a whole new state, literally and figuratively. Our initial scene, this series' horror equivalent to James Bond opener, stars none other than one of the genre's most likable final girls, Samara Weaving from Ready or Not. A tip of the hat to Sharni Vincent of You're Next also. In the after event of a pretty ghastly murder, we are actually witness to who is under a mask, a record for this series. Tony Revolori is the killer, fresh from his initial slashing high on the prize and gloating to his mysteriously absentee partner in crime. Their goal is to off the surviving sisters Sam and Tara. It's an interesting thing. Already enjoying the twisteroo of the formula, I thought maybe we'll follow him through the film and we'll guess who his partner is, but as the scene went on, I realized no, he's not going to make it. This is a pretty extended opening for a Scream franchise film. Well, he's killed his teacher and he's using it as a primer to finish Richie's film. I actually don't remember Richie being a filmmaker from Scream 5. I thought they were mistakenly referencing Mickey from Scream 2, but whatever. So he gets a call from the real Ghostface, because it leads to a graphic fridging of his best bud. He himself, Jason Carvey, gets carved up. My 4D chess mind is going, okay, maybe this is Samantha doing this, because I always overthink when I watch horror films. Well, I was wrong, although that could have been an awesome way to go. The weird thing is, as the Ghostface slashes down on Jason, he bellows out, who the cares about horror movies? And I'm feeling singled out. Then we see Sam has been in therapy for 6 months because the writers make sure that the therapist says this to clue in the audience that this has been 6 months after whatever the hell happened in the previous film. Maybe even more than that. 6 months, and you never tell your therapist that you are the daughter of a famous serial killer, ended up being part of an actual group of slayings, and you killed a killer, and you never knew this in 6 months of therapy. I don't buy this. I mean, I've been to counselors as a kid and they've taken phone calls during my session, so I don't get this. I don't understand it. Anyway, we get to see the ongoing frail relationship between sisters Sam and Tara reaching a breaking point where Sam's overprotectiveness at a party, which by the way has an honest-to-God murder party reference. Murder party, okay? Go watch that movie. It's awesome. It causes a rift between the two. Sam is trying to protect her sister and doesn't trust anyone, not even herself. I do like the performances of Melissa Barrera, herself coming from the wonderful flop In the Heights musical, and It Girl Jenna Ortega from Wednesday, obviously. They're both quite believable as siblings, and you root for them, and their relationship comes off as very genuine. As for the others that round off the cast, we have Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooden as Randy's niece and nephew, respectively. Randy, obviously, from Scream 1 and 2. They form, as Mason Chad calls, the Core Four. I like Mason, but I find Mindy a little bit off as the geeky film expert. She's a little too cool to take over for Randy's role. She's still a very good actor. You know, if you want to see some of her work, go watch The Leftovers. And she was good in a really horrible movie called The Sound of Violence, but it's a movie that's not even worth watching. But she's still good in it. Rounding out the characters are Ethan, Quinn, Danny, and Annika. So those are just sort of stock characters there in the movie. So yes, there's a large cast, not even counting Gail as a legacy character, as well as Kirby, who's also a legacy character from Scream 4, a film I did not actually watch in the series. People really love that character, according to Twitter. So she brought herself back, and she will. I've only known the actress who plays Kirby from Heroes, the NBC show, and I couldn't get through all that. But also Dermot Mulroney, an actor that I'm very familiar with, but I forget where I've seen him before, and he's playing an always suffering dad cop. He's the father of Tara's roommate. You know, rounding out the characters, they're not very interesting, other than the main four or even the main two. So does this film work? Yes, actually. When it was said this film was gorier and different because of its setting, that's a yes and a no. The gore is pretty similar to all the Scream films except for the scene with the fridge and the corpse pieces. And you can't tell it's New York except for really like a busy train scene, and there's like a scene supposedly in Central Park, but I don't even know which part of the park this was at. I've been in New York, so I understand what New York looks like. And other than some exteriors, I'm like, I really don't notice it. The train is obviously a one train because it goes from 96 to 79th Street. Anyway, can't have a New York movie without iconic landscapes, and they don't have any of them in here, which is weird. You think put maybe Times Square, you maybe put the High Line, some interesting places. There's a lot of really nice places you can put in New York, and even Jason Voorhees walked through Times Square, and Jason Takes Manhattan sucks. There is a high body count in this film, and there are some very tense moments. There's a scene with a ladder between two apartment buildings, which I thought was actually really well done. I mean, it was very predictable. There's a bodega scene with a shotgun, and people are freaked out because Ghostface uses a shotgun in the scene, and I'm like, every Ghostface in every Scream movie has used a gun in some capacity, so I don't understand why people are getting upset about that. It's a pretty quick-paced film for an almost 2-hour runtime. It's a charming kind of funny rather than a laugh-out-loud funny, at least for me. Why this film series is so popular, because it was rejuvenated with the fifth film. Obviously, a lot of people like slashers. A lot of people enjoy teen dramas like Riverdale or Gossip Girl, those shows like that. And I think this merges both, and people enjoy that. Because I guess when I was younger, I would have had the same reason for the original Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer and all those type of slasher films. So I guess, that's what these kids do nowadays, but they're much cooler than I ever was. Interestingly enough, this movie tries to tackle very sloppily the notion of cancel culture. It's very haphazard how they do it in the reveal of the killer's motives, and I don't know if the social buzzword actually is impactful to the film itself. It's sort of an afterthought, because it happens to Sam earlier in the film, where she is confronted by a couple of students on their phones, and they're calling her a killer, because for some reason a lot of people think that she did the killings in Woodsboro from the previous Scream 5, which I don't understand, doesn't make any sense. If there's like cops saying, hey, this is going on, this person killed all these people, but whatever. But Sam doesn't lose her job from it. She's ostracized at some point at social gatherings, but other than that, it's like real life, like nobody cares. It could have been a much more interesting psychological torture for Sam to actually go through some sort of facet of cancel culture, or I guess, what people perceive as this boogeyman notion of being canceled in real life, and add a layer to it, but alas, the writers didn't have enough time to crowbar that into this like freight train of a movie, because it's constantly in motion, and its running time, it needed to do a lot of stuff in such a short amount of time. 2 hours is not short, but for this type of movie it is. There's even a scene where they're watching a news report, and the news reporters say, hey, this character Sam, some people think that she actually is the killer, and I'm like, that's like litigious. There's no news reporter, unless it's on some certain channels where they're getting sued now for stuff that they say, but that's like super litigious, and you got to really watch what you say about stuff like that, because that does not make any sense. Do the characters have plot armor? Yes, which is a relief for some characters, but it's annoying for the core four that are pretty much indestructible, and I'm just assuming by the third of this new trilogy of Screaming from 5, 6, and 7, I'm sure there's going to be a 7, that they're going to probably at least kill one or two of them. And the writing is a bit hit or miss, with character logic and personalities that are like detached from this reality and this type of situation. I mean, it's par for course in these type of horror films, but seriously, people are joking and laughing and making quirky comments right after somebody's died, like not even 6 hours earlier or even half an hour earlier. And I'm like, that does not make any sense. I'd be like traumatized. I don't know how Sam, in her imagination, because the interesting aspect of her is that since she has a killer's blood in her system, and she's seeing this sort of visage of Billy Loomis, even though he looks older than what he did when he died. I enjoyed it, I think it's a solid 7.5, leaving your grievously injured girlfriend to be the last one to climb a ladder across 2 buildings, which absolutely doesn't make any sense. I don't know why she did that, but whatever. So now I'm going to do super heavy spoilers for this film. So if you want to go, you got my rating, 7.5. Heavy spoilers for the finale in 3, 2, 1. So you're going to tell me that an NYPD officer is able to fake his daughter's death in front of trained EMTs just because he got there first. He was able to slip in a fresh corpse and use makeup on this corpse and let them think that this was his daughter, and there's no blood work, there's no checking on it. I don't get that. I don't get why this cop was able to switch his daughter, because he's the bad guy. Obviously Dermot Mulroney is like awesome in this part when he comes out and he goes crazy. I think other than that, he's actually a pretty good actor in the film itself. Like, he seems like a pretty believable. But he has both kids who are helping him. The one who's the Evan Peters lookalike guy, who adds nothing to the movie other than to be pointed at as possibly the bad guy. So the one girl is right about him. And then the daughter, who was the horny roommate, and she was nothing in the movie. She really had added nothing to the film. Scream has a problem with these secondary bad guys for the most part. It's like, at least like Billy and Stu were actual characters in the film, the first film. So that shows you 5 and part 6 are just rehashing the same storyline, because it was her boyfriend in part 5 that tried to kill her, which is happening to Sam. And in this one, it's a parent of the killer from the first film. So just like Billy's mother, this is going to be this guy Richie's dad who's doing it. It's just like, oh man, like do something else. I mean, I listen, I'm saying this bad. This is just like pointing out the bad stuff in this movie. I enjoyed the film. I'm recommending it. That's only my real problem, is that goofy sort of writing, which you don't like deal with because it's already like 5 minutes towards the end of the film. And whatever. This is like, Scream is like the Marvel universe of slasher films. Like, you know the type of quality you're gonna get when you're watching it, and people enjoy it, so they're just gonna keep going in to watch it, which is totally fine. It's an escape. It's fun. I enjoyed it. If you can sort of try to turn off your rage like I do. And with that, this has been the Horror Deconstruction.